Every night, when the town fell silent and the street lights flickered under the weight of the darkness, a lonely bark would echo through the neighborhood. It wasn't the sound of aggression, nor was it the playful bark of a happy pet. It was something different, something haunting. People whispered about it. They said the dog always barked in front of the same abandoned house, the one no one dared to enter. Its windows were broken, its paint peeled away by time, and the garden had long been swallowed by weeds. But no matter how empty it looked, the German shepherd would stand at its gate, staring into the darkness, barking as though he could see something nobody else could. At first, neighbors thought he was just guarding something, maybe chasing away the shadows. But night after night, at the exact same hour, his cries grew more desperate, more sorrowful. Some said they heard him howl like he was calling out for someone who could no longer answer. Others swore they saw his ears perk, his body stiffen, like he wasn't barking at nothing at all, but at someone inside. Fear began to spread. The house had a dark history, stories of a tragedy that no one liked to speak of. Children dared each other to walk past at night, but not one was brave enough to stay when the dog began to howl. Why would a loyal German shepherd return, night after night, to an abandoned place that everyone else had forgotten? The answer, when it came, shocked the entire town and revealed a truth that no one was prepared for. The town had lived with the mystery of the barking dog for weeks, and yet no one dared to confront it directly. During the day, the German shepherd was nowhere to be seen. He appeared only when the sun set, padding quietly down the cracked sidewalk until he reached the front gate of the abandoned house. Then, almost like clockwork, the barking began. At first, the neighbors tried to ignore it. They closed their curtains, turned up their televisions, or covered their ears with pillows. But no matter how they tried, the sound found its way inside, low and mournful, carrying something almost human in its tone. One man, Mr. Hall, who lived across the street, finally decided he had had enough. A retired schoolteacher, Mr. Hall was practical, skeptical, and not one to entertain talk of spirits or curses. He stepped out one night, wrapped in his old coat, and called to the dog, "Go home, boy. There's nothing here for you." But the dog didn't budge. His ears twitched, his eyes fixed firmly on the darkened windows of the house. He barked again, sharp, urgent, like he was trying to alert the man to something. Mr. Hall felt a chill creep over him. It wasn't just random barking. It was communication. The dog wanted someone to understand. The house itself had been empty for nearly 10 years. People remembered when it wasn't. A family had once lived there, a mother, a father, and their young daughter. They had moved in with hopes of a new beginning. But whispers spread that tragedy had struck. Some said it was a fire, others a disappearance. The truth had never been spoken aloud. The German shepherd, though, seemed to know. Each night he returned. Some nights he sat quietly, staring with unblinking eyes at the front door. Other nights he barked furiously, as though demanding that someone open it. His paws scratched at the rusty gate, his body tense with frustration. Curiosity began to outweigh fear. A group of teenagers, driven by dares and bravado, decided to follow the dog one night. They crouched behind bushes, watching as he made his way to the house. The moment he reached the gate, he let out a long, mournful howl. The sound was so filled with grief that even the bravest of them felt their courage shrink. "Maybe he used to live there," one whispered. "Or maybe he sees a ghost," another muttered. The leader of the group tried to mask his own fear, picked up a stone and tossed it toward the gate. "Hey, dog, it's just an empty house," he shouted. The stone clattered across the ground, but the shepherd didn't flinch. Instead, he turned his head and fixed the boy with such a piercing stare that for a moment, the teenager forgot to breathe. Then the dog barked again, low and warning, before returning his gaze to the windows. The boys fled, their laughter forced, their hearts pounding. None of them returned. But the story spread. Soon, everyone in town knew of the dog who barked at the empty house, and speculation grew wilder with each retelling. Some said the German shepherd was the ghost of a long-dead pet. Others claimed he was protecting the house from something sinister inside. A few insisted he was waiting for someone who would never return. And then one stormy night, everything changed. The rain poured in sheets, rattling rooftops and flooding the streets. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the town in eerie flashes. Yet, even in the downpour, the barking could be heard. Louder, more frantic than ever, the German shepherd howled at the abandoned house as though his life depended on it. Mr. Hall, peering through his curtains, felt something shift inside him. He couldn't explain why, but he knew that the dog wasn't barking for no reason. There was something in that house, something the dog wanted them to see. He grabbed his flashlight, pulled on his boots, and stepped into the storm. As he crossed the street, the dog turned to him. Water streamed down its fur, eyes shining with a strange mixture of desperation and relief. The shepherd barked once, sharp and clear, and then turned back to the house. Mr. Hall hesitated at the gate. The wood of the house loomed before him, sagging and broken, its windows dark and lifeless. But the dog's insistent cries drove him forward. He pushed open the gate, its rusty hinges screaming in protest, and stepped into the overgrown yard. The moment he did, the dog quieted. He trotted to the front door, scratched at the wood, and then sat back, waiting. Mr. Hall's heart pounded in his chest. He raised his flashlight, the beam cutting through the shadows. The door, though weathered and worn, was slightly ajar. Lightning cracked overhead, and in that instant, Mr. Hall thought he saw movement inside. A flicker, a shadow. His rational mind told him it was impossible. The house had been abandoned for years. Yet the German shepherd sat patiently, eyes locked on the door, as if saying, "Go on. Look." With trembling hands, Mr. Hall reached for the handle. The door groaned open. The smell hit him first, stale air, dust, and something faintly metallic like rust. His flashlight beam swept across the floor, revealing broken furniture, shattered glass, and walls streaked with peeling paint. But then it landed on something that made his blood run cold. A photograph. It lay face down on the floor, half covered in dust. He bent down, picked it up, and turned it over. The image was faded, but clear enough to see. A little girl, smiling brightly, stood with her arms wrapped around a German shepherd. The same German shepherd. Mr. Hall staggered back, his breath caught in his throat. He looked at the dog, who was still sitting calmly by the door, eyes glistening in the flashlight's glow. The connection was undeniable. This was not just any dog. This was his house. This was his family. And he had come back, night after night, searching for what had been lost. The truth was beginning to surface, and Mr. Hall realized with a shiver that the dog's cries were not random. They were a call, a plea. But a plea for what? And why now after all these years? The storm raged on outside, the thunder shaking the walls, but inside, the silence was heavy, suffocating. The German shepherd stood, walked into the shadows of the house, and turned to look at Mr. Hall as if inviting him deeper. Heart pounding, flashlight trembling, Mr. Hall followed. Whatever secrets the house held, the dog was ready to reveal them. And as Mr. Hall stepped further into the darkness, he realized that this was only the beginning of a truth that would shake the town to its very core. The beam of Mr. Hall's flashlight swept across the crumbling walls as he followed the German shepherd deeper into the house. The floorboards groaned beneath his boots, and the musty smell grew stronger with every step. The dog walked ahead confidently, as if he knew this place by heart, pausing every few moments to glance back at the old man, making sure he was still following. The living room told a story of sudden departure. Toys scattered across the floor, a doll's arm poking out from under the couch, a broken teacup resting in a pile of dust. Everything looked frozen in time, as though the family had left in a hurry and never returned. Mr. Hall's chest tightened as he remembered the rumors. He had been a teacher when the family lived here, and though he never taught the little girl, he had seen her in town. Her name, what was it? He closed his eyes, trying to recall. Then it came back. Emily, the bright child with a smile big enough to melt hearts. He remembered her clutching the hand of her mother as they walked through the grocery store. And beside her, always beside her, was the same German shepherd that now stood in front of him. The dog nudged the old couch with his nose, whining softly. Mr. Hall walked closer and shined his light underneath. Dust swirled in the beam, revealing a small, rusted tin box pushed against the wall. His fingers shook as he reached down and pulled it out. The box was dented and old, the metal nearly corroded, yet the clasp still held. With a snap, he opened it. Inside lay a stack of photographs, yellow by age, and a folded piece of paper. The first photo he pulled out was of Emily again, her arms wrapped tight around the German shepherd, her smile wide and carefree. Another showed her parents standing proudly in front of the house when it was still fresh with paint. Then his eyes fell on a different photo, darker, sadder. The same family, but Emily's eyes looked tired, and her smile was faint. He unfolded the piece of paper with trembling hands. It was a letter. The ink was smudged, but the words were still readable. If anything happens, please know we love her more than life itself. He will protect her. He always has. Mr. Hall's breath caught. The words felt heavy with foreboding, as though the family had known tragedy was coming. The German shepherd barked suddenly, startling him. The dog's tail swished anxiously, and he trotted towards the staircase. Upstairs, Mr. Hall whispered, his throat dry. The dog barked again, sharp and certain, against every instinct telling him to turn back. Mr. Hall followed. Each step up the staircase moaned beneath his weight, though it's soft and brittle with age. The German shepherd padded ahead, climbing easily, pausing only at the landing where the hallway stretched into darkness. The doors to the bedrooms were ajar. The dog led him into the first room, Emily's. The flashlight beam revealed a space preserved by memory. The wallpaper, though faded and peeling, still bore the faint pattern of stars and moons. A small bed sat in the corner, its blanket covered in dust but unmistakably childlike, adorned with faded cartoon characters. On the dresser stood a jewelry box, its lid open, a cracked ballerina figurine frozen mid-dance. The dog sat beside the bed, his eyes reflecting the flashlight. Then he lowered his head, whining softly. Mr. Hall's throat tightened. He crouched down and noticed something tucked beneath the bed frame, a small notebook. Pulling it free, he brushed the dust away and opened it. It was Emily's diary. The entries were short, written in the shaky handwriting of a young child. Today, Rex barked at the window again. Mama says he's just being protective, but I think he knows something. Papa seems worried a lot. He keeps checking the doors and windows. Mama cried last night. She told me to stay close to Rex, always. And then the final entry, dated just days before the family disappeared. Rex won't stop barking at the house across the street. He barks all night, and Papa told us not to go near the windows. Mama held me tight and told me no matter what happens, Rex will take care of me. I don't understand what's wrong, but everyone seems so scared. Mr. Hall's hands trembled as he closed the diary. His pulse thundered in his ears. Whatever had happened here wasn't an accident. The family had been afraid. They had known something was coming. The German shepherd, Rex, lifted his head, staring at Mr. Hall with eyes full of urgency. Then he barked again, but this time it wasn't just to fill the silence. It was a demand, a plea to be understood. Rex, Mr. Hall whispered, the name falling from his lips naturally, as though he had always known it. The dog's ears perked, and for the first time, his tail wagged faintly, as if recognizing the acknowledgement. But before Mr. Hall could process further, a loud creak echoed through the house. The old man froze, his flashlight trembling. He wasn't alone. His heart raced as the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, not like the scurrying of rats or the creak of settling wood. Someone, or something, was moving in the house. Rex stiffened, his ears standing tall, his body tense. A low growl rumbled from his chest. "Who's there?" Mr. Hall called, his voice quivering but firm. The only response was silence. Then another footstep, closer. Rex barked fiercely, positioning himself between Mr. Hall and the door. His teeth bared, his growl deepened, echoing through the room. The flashlight beam darted across the hallway, catching only shadows. Mr. Hall's mind raced. Was it possible someone had been living here all these years? Was the house not as abandoned as everyone believed? The footsteps stopped abruptly. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Then In the stillness, Mr. Hall heard it, barely audible but unmistakable. A whisper, "Emily." The blood drained from his face. The voice was low, strained, almost otherworldly. Rex's bark grew louder, more frantic, as though warning him to stay back. But Mr. Hall's curiosity pushed him forward. His legs shook as he stepped into the hallway. The dog close at his side. The flashlight beam danced across the peeling wallpaper and cracked picture frames. Then it landed on the farthest door, Emily's parents' bedroom. The door was closed, though he knew he had seen it ajar earlier. He reached out with a trembling hand and pushed. The door swung open with a groan. Inside, the room was nearly bare. The bed frame leaned against the wall, the mattress rotting away. The curtains fluttered slightly, though the windows were sealed shut. And in the corner, something glistened. He approached slowly, Rex at his heels, growling. The beam revealed an object, an old locket, tarnished with age. He picked it up, prying it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a tiny photograph of Emily and her parents. On the opposite side, a small engraving read, "Forever together, no matter what." His chest ached. This family had been bound by love, but something had torn them apart. Suddenly, Rex lunged at the wall beside him, barking and clawing furiously. Mr. Hall jumped back, shining the light where the dog scratched. At first, it looked like just another crack wall, but then he saw it, an outline, a hidden door. Mr. Hall's heart pounded in his throat. His hands shook as he pressed against the wood. With a groan, the panel shifted, revealing a narrow passage behind the wall. Cold air wafted out, carrying the smell of earth and rot. Rex barked once, sharply, then stepped inside without hesitation. Mr. Hall followed, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The passage led downward, narrow and suffocating, into the depths below the house. And as he descended into the hidden space, he realized that the mystery of the dog's nightly vigil was not just about loyalty or memory. It was about uncovering a truth that had been buried, literally, for years. A truth that would explain the family's sudden disappearance. And perhaps a truth that would show why Rex had never given up. The air in the passage was damp and suffocating, carrying with it the heavy stench of earth and decay. Mr. Hall's flashlight trembled in his grip as he followed Rex deeper underground. The dog moved steadily, his nails clicking against the stone floor, ears pricked forward and tail stiff. It was as if he had walked this path countless times before. The tunnel walls closed in tightly, the wood beams holding them in place creaking ominously. Mr. Hall's breath grew shallow, the weight of the silence pressing on him. Each step echoed too loudly, bouncing back against the narrow walls, reminding him that he was walking into something long hidden. Finally, the tunnel widened into a low-ceilinged chamber. Dust drifted in the beam of the flashlight, swirling like tiny spirits. Rex stood at the center, his head bowed, whining softly. Mr. Hall's eyes swept the room. At first glance, it appeared empty, just stone walls and dirt floor. But then the beam caught something unusual. Against the far wall lay a wooden trunk, its lid half broken, its surface marred with scratches. The dog padded toward it and pawed at the lid, barking once, urgently. With a dry throat, Mr. Hall approached. His hand shook as he pushed the lid open. The hinges shrieked in protest. Inside, he saw remnants of clothing, small dresses, a child's shoes, and scraps of fabric too old and tattered to identify. Beneath them lay papers, old legal documents, bank statements, and a faded newspaper clipping. He pulled one out, brushing the dust away. The headline froze his blood. Local family vanishes without a trace. Police suspect foul play. It was dated nearly 20 years ago. He unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. The article described the sudden disappearance of Emily and her parents. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises in the nights leading up to their vanishing, arguing, doors slamming, and Rex barking endlessly. When the police searched the home, they found signs of struggle but no bodies. The case had gone cold, leaving the town haunted by unanswered questions. Mr. Hall's chest tightened. He remembered the hushed whispers from years ago, the way townsfolk avoided talking about it, as if burying a memory could erase the pain. But standing here in the darkness with Rex whining beside him, he realized the truth had never been buried. It had only been hidden. Rex suddenly barked sharply, drawing Mr. Hall's attention to the far corner of a chamber. The beam of light revealed something half buried in dirt, a mound that didn't belong. Mr. Hall's heart hammered as he stepped closer, each pace heavy with dread. He dropped to his knees, pushing aside loose soil. His hand shook violently as the shape beneath became clear. Bones. Human bones. He stumbled back, his flashlight slipping and clattering onto the ground, the beam spinning wildly across the chamber. His breath caught in his throat as realization struck. These weren't just remains. They were the family, Emily's parents. Rex whined mournfully, pawing the ground beside the bones. His eyes gleamed with sorrow, as though urging Mr. Hall to understand. But where was Emily? Mr. Hall forced himself to pick up the flashlight, its beam trembling as it swept over the chamber again. Then on the wall above the mound he saw it, etched deep into the stone, crude and uneven, but unmistakable. Protect Emily? His knees weakened. He leaned against the wall, his mind spinning. Whoever had killed the family had left us behind. A message? A command? A confession? Rex barked again, louder this time, pulling him toward a smaller passage branching off from the chamber. The dog darted into the darkness, forcing Mr. Hall to follow despite his pounding heart. This passage was narrower, colder. The smell of damp soil grew stronger. At the end, Mr. Hall's flashlight revealed another wooden door, its surface scarred with claw marks. Rex scratched furiously at it, barking so loud the tunnel seemed to shake. Mr. Hall's hands fumbled with the latch. With one final push, the door groaned open. The room beyond was small, almost like a cell. Inside, there was nothing but a broken chair, a rusted chain bolted to the wall, and a pile of fabric that looked disturbingly like a child's blanket. Mr. Hall's stomach churned. His breath came in shallow gasps as he realized what this place had been, a prison. Someone had kept Emily here. He knelt down, lifting the tattered blanket. Beneath it lay a small box, hidden carefully in the dirt. With trembling hands, he opened it. Inside were drawings, crude sketches in a child's hand. One showed Rex beside a smiling stick-figure girl. Another showed a house, with shadows looming over it. The last was the most chilling, a stick-figure girl crying inside a small square, with the word help scribbled over and over. Tears blurred Mr. Hall's vision. Emily had been alive long after her parents were gone. Trapped, alone, her only protector had been Rex. But where was she now? A sound jolted him from his thoughts, the faint creak of floorboards above. He froze. This wasn't just the groans of an old house. Someone was upstairs. Rex growled low, his body tense. Mr. Hall turned off the flashlight, plunging him into darkness, and held his breath. The footsteps grew louder, deliberate, as if whoever was knew someone had discovered the passage. For a moment, Mr. Hall considered fleeing. He was old, frail, and unprepared. But then he looked at Rex, the dog who had waited, barked, and guarded this house for decades. Rex's eyes burned with determination. He wasn't afraid. He was ready. Mr. Hall clenched his fists. He couldn't back down either. Slowly, carefully, he began retreating through passage, Rex at his side. The sound of footsteps above followed them, pacing the floor as though tracking their every move. When they finally emerged back into the bedroom, the house was deathly silent again. The flashlight beam swept across the walls, trembling, but nothing stirred. And then a voice, low, rasping, chilling. "You shouldn't have come here." The word sent ice through Mr. Hall's veins. He spun around, the beam landing on the doorway. A figure stood there, shadowed, tall, face obscured by darkness. Rex barked furiously, his teeth bared, lunging forward as the figure stepped closer. Mr. Hall's heart pounded as the truth crashed over him like a wave. The one responsible had never left. They had been here all along, guarding the secret, waiting for anyone who dared uncover it. And now, after all these years, the dog's nightly barking, his desperate vigil at the empty house, made horrifying sense. He hadn't just been mourning. He had been warning. The house was no longer silent. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind seemed amplified as Mr. Hall stood frozen, staring at the shadowed figure in the doorway. His flashlight beam quivered, illuminating little more than the outline of a tall frame. Rex growled low and feral, his teeth bared and his stance rigid with fury. The figure took a step forward, and Mr. Hall instinctively backed away. His throat was dry, words catching before they could form. Who are you?" he finally managed, his voice trembling. The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, they tilted their head, as though studying him, before letting out a laugh, low, humorless, chilling. "You shouldn't be here," the voice rasped again, deeper this time, carrying a weight that seemed to seep into the walls. "You've opened doors that were meant to stay shut." Rex barked sharply, lunging forward, forcing the figure to stop. The dog's body was coiled like a spring, every muscle ready to strike. Mr. Hall could feel it. The years of patience, of sorrow, of holding back. Rex was no longer simply guarding. He was confronting. "Emily!" Mr. Hall whispered, desperation cutting through his fear. What happened to Emily? The name seemed to ripple through the room. The figure stiffened, their hand clenching at their side. For a moment, silence swallowed everything. Then, slowly, the figure stepped into the light. It was a man, gaunt, his face weathered and hollow, with eyes sunken deep into his skull. His clothes were ragged, his skin pale from years hidden away. But it was his eyes that sent a shiver through Mr. Hall's spine, cold, unblinking, and yet carrying a glimmer of something far darker than madness. "She's gone," the man hissed, his lips curling into a twisted grin. "I made sure of that." Rex lunged, snarling, but Mr. Hall held him back by the collar, his own body trembling with horror. "Why?" he demanded, voice breaking. "She was just a child." The man's expression flickered, anger, then satisfaction. "Her family was in the way. They tried to expose me. I couldn't let that happen. The girl, she was leverage, a tool to silence them. But children grow stubborn, and stubbornness has a price." The words twisted through the air like poison. Mr. Hall's chest ached, grief pressing down on him as images of Emily's drawings flooded his mind. The smiling stick figures, the desperate cries for help. She had lived in hope, even in her suffering. Hope that Rex would save her. Hope that someone would listen. And for all those years, her loyal companion had never stopped trying. Mr. Hall's voice cracked. You killed them all." The man's grin widened, as if the admission gave him power. "Yes, and no one ever knew. They buried their whispers, their suspicions, but no proof was ever found. Until now." His eyes darted toward the flashlight in Mr. Hall's hand, the evidence-filled trunk below, and the tunnel behind them. He stepped closer, his voice dropping into a growl. "Which means you don't leave this house alive." Before Mr. Hall could react, the man lunged, but Rex was faster. With a snarl that echoed through the entire house, the German shepherd launched himself at the intruder. The two crashed to the floor, Rex's teeth sinking into the man's arm as he screamed in agony. The struggle was brutal, the man flailing, punching, trying to wrench free, but Rex refused to let go, years of pain and loyalty fueling his strength. "Rex!" Mr. Hall cried, fumbling toward the door, searching for anything that could help. His trembling hands found a broken chair leg, and without thinking, he swung it with all his strength. The wood cracked against the man's back, sending him sprawling. Rex stood protectively over Mr. Hall, teeth bared, chest heaving. The man scrambled to his knees, blood dripping down his arm, his face twisted in rage. "This isn't over," he spat, before staggering toward the window. With a crash, he hurled himself through the broken glass, vanishing into the night. Mr. Hall's chest heaved as he collapsed his knees, the weight of everything crashing down. The evidence was there, the bones, the documents, the drawings. But the monster who had caused it all was still free. Rex patted over, nuzzling his hand, his eyes filled with both sorrow and determination. Mr. Hall stroked his fur, tears streaming down his face. "We'll finish this, boy. For Emily, for her family. I promise." By morning, the authorities swarmed the house. Mr. Hall handed over everything. The remains, the documents, the newspaper clippings, the drawings. The hidden passage in the chamber were sealed off, preserved for investigation. The case, once cold and forgotten, now burned with new evidence. The police questioned Mr. Hall relentlessly, but it was Rex who held their attention. The loyal German shepherd had been the key all along, never giving up, never forgetting. His nightly barking hadn't been madness or habit. It had been a call for justice. News spread quickly. Reporters crowded the streets, headlines buzzing with words like "Cold Case Reopened" and "Dog Leads Authorities to Truth." The town, once haunted by silence, now buzzed with a mix of grief and relief. But the shadow of the man still lingered. He was out there, wounded, dangerous, and desperate, and everyone knew he wouldn't stay hidden forever. It happened 2 nights later. Mr. Hall was sitting in his small home, Rex lying by his feet, when the sound of shattered glass jolted him awake. His heart stopped. The man had come back. Before Mr. Hall could react, the intruder stormed in, knife in hand, eyes wild with rage. "You should have stayed out of it," he roared, lunging forward. Rex leapt. The fight was chaos. Furniture crashing, glass shattering, the man's knife flashing dangerously in the dim light. But Rex was unrelenting. Every attack fueled by the memory of his lost companion. Mr. Hall, desperate, grabbed the phone and called for help, his voice breaking as he shouted for police. The struggle dragged on until finally, with one last surge of strength, Rex forced the man to the ground, pinning him there with a ferocity no human could match. By the time the police burst through the door, weapons drawn, the fight was over. The man lay bloodied and defeated, his knife clattering across the floor. He was taken away in handcuffs, his eyes still burning with hatred. But his reign of terror was finished. The town mourned when Emily's remains were finally discovered, hidden deeper in the earth than anyone had realized. The sorrow was unbearable, but the truth brought closure. The family was finally laid to rest together, their story no longer silenced by fear. Mr. Hall stood at the graveside, Rex at his side, tears streaming freely. The German shepherd's ears drooped, his eyes reflecting a sorrow no words could capture. But in his presence, there was also peace. He had fulfilled his duty. He had protected Emily, even in death, and ensured her story was told. As the townspeople gathered, they looked not at the tragedy, but at the hero who had refused to give up. Rex, the dog who barked every night, who carried the weight of grief and loyalty for decades, who finally broke the silence that had held the town captive. Years later, people still spoke of the house, the family, and the man who tried to bury the truth. But more than anything, they spoke of the dog. Children grew up hearing the story of the German shepherd who never forgot, whose cries in the night carried both sorrow and hope. His loyalty became legend, a reminder that sometimes the purest love comes not from people, but from the hearts of the animals who walk beside us. Mr. Hall often visited the graves, Rex always at his side, the two of them bound by a truth they had uncovered together. And though the pain never fully left, there was comfort in knowing that justice had finally been served. On quiet nights, when the wind carried echoes through the town, some swore they could still hear a bark near the old house. Not of sorrow, but triumph. The dog who barked every night had finally been heard.